Good evening. I'd like to call the Guthrie Planning Commission meeting to order for October 12th, 2017. Ms. Blaine, could we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Commissioner Ogden,
Here?
Commissioner McBride,
Here.
Commissioner Chapo,
Here.
Commissioner Spinato,
Here.
Commissioner Kenworthy.
Here.
We have a quorum present.
Thank you. And Ms. Blaine, if you'd like to maybe introduce some of our staff that are here, including yourself.
Yes, so I am the new city planner. My name is Rebecca Blaine. I've been with the city just about a month now, and I'm happy to be here. My undergrad's from NSU in Broken Arrow in business marketing. Then I have my master's from OU in urban design.
And we're very happy to have you and perhaps a gentleman back in the corner. Would you like to introduce him?
Yes. This is our city manager, Leroy Alsop.
Thank you. Good to have you aboard and good to have you here. Thank you, gentlemen. Public comments, are there any other than on the matter that we have discussed tonight? Are there any other, do you notice anything on anybody has anything to bring up other than the matter we're talking about tonight? Anything different? All about our bed and breakfast thing? Okay, we'll defer that until we get to that point. Approval of the previous minutes from August 10th. Commissioners, you've got printed minutes before you. Are there any corrections or additions? There's only three of us that can vote on that. That would be Ogden, Chapel, and Spinetto. Any changes or anything with you three?
No,
Us three?
I make a motion that the minutes be approved.
Here, a second. That'd be you, Mr. Chapel.
Second. I'm sorry, I'm still reading.
That's okay, still reading. Would you give me a second, please?
Second.
Minutes.
In the minutes.
On the minute.
Yes, thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in
I
favor?
can't multitask,
Yes.
it's obvious.
All in favor, just a quick aye. Aye.
Aye.
Item 4 is I did ask earlier, and I'll do it one more time. Could we ask you all to silence your cell phones, please? Otherwise, we're going to ask you to bring the conversation right in and let us all hear it. Everybody done that? Thank you. No shaking heads back there. Item 4, discussion and recommendation to the City Council regarding the request for a special use permit to operate a bed and breakfast in an R1 zoning, single-family homes, at the location of 710 East Warner Avenue. Staff comments, please.
So looking at current bed and breakfasts that we have in Guthrie, we have 4 current bed and breakfasts that are in a R1 single-family zoning. We had recommended approval for this item if they could maintain the architectural integrity of the historic structure as well as accommodate with adequate parking.
Okay, and thank you for this very complete packet too, Ms. Blaine. As we have several requests to speak, number 1, do we have the applicant here to talk to us first?
We do. I guess let me do some introductions first.
Okay, and what I'd like to ask you to do when you come up here, please state your name, address very clearly for the record, and help us out on that.
Sure. My name is James Long. My personal address is 512 East Washington. The address that's in question is 710 East Warner. I'm the realtor that is representing this property. We do have the owners of the current property here, the sellers, as well as the buyers. So the buyers are the ones that will be primarily discussing the request.
What they'd like to do. Okay.
Yes. So
Thank you, Mr.
I'll let
Long.
them speak next.
Hello?
My name is Christine Satterley. My current address is 4109 Sooner Court in Edmond.
I'm sorry, Ms. Christine, your last name?
Satterley?
Satterley, thank you.
Yes, 2 T's, 2 E's.
Go ahead, please.
And so my sister, my business partner, and I, Rebecca Sellers, what we would like to do with the property at 710 East Warner is to have a retreat center for handcrafters, such as quilters, scrapbookers, knitters, etc., to gather together to create in a quiet, beautiful environment. All of this will be experienced in a turn-of-the-century American four-square home, away from the distractions of home and work responsibilities. Our ideal demographic are women aged 30 to 70 with expendable income who enjoy creative outlets such as quilting and scrapbooking. These women also seek time away from the daily rigor of home and work to escape to a quiet and restorative place to be able to create without distractions while enjoying their handcrafts in the company of friends who have similar interests. So while we might be considered a bed and breakfast, our market is more people like myself I'm an avid quilter. I have 2 small children at home. I'm a business owner. My husband is also a business owner, and life gets hectic. And I don't have time to hang out with my girlfriends or my mom and do what we like to do, which is quilting and scrapbooking. So several times a year, a group of friends will go to, right now we're going to Ponca City. I spend upwards of $1,500 a year just for a place to get together with my friends and have a quiet weekend. So we want to be a good steward to the neighborhood and just provide a quiet, relaxing place. We're not looking to be your typical bed and breakfast where people just come and go in different times of the day or week. And we are, to address the issues of the city manager, we love the house. That's what drew us to Guthrie. That's what drew us to this particular residence. It's so beautiful. All the original woodwork is there. The architecture's great. We love its location. We love Guthrie. And to address the parking concerns, I have a rendering here that I've brought for you all. Current zoning laws, as we understand it, requires 1 parking space for each 2 guests. The house, as we have it proposed, will sleep 12. So we'll be required to have 6 parking spots, which can be easily located into the rear of the house. There's a existing carport structure that we were proposing to remove. It's kind of a dilapidated state. And as you can see, there's kind of like a big wooden log in the corner. That's a very old established elm tree that we're going to keep. We love the tree and just the ambiance. I'm a landscape contractor. I own a landscape company. I have a bachelor's in landscape architecture from OSU. And so the landscaping of the property will be professionally landscaped and maintained by myself and my employees on a weekly basis. We want this to be a beautiful retreat for women. So I'd like to maybe address any more concerns that you guys might have.
Are you going to be living in this home?
No.
How often will you be holding the retreats?
Well, there's 2 different types of sort of guests. One would be sort of working mothers who don't have time to get off during the week. So they would be our typical weekend guest. They would maybe check in on a Thursday evening or a Friday morning and check out on a Sunday. And then our typical weekday guest would be maybe retired women or women that don't have a work schedule to keep. And they would be more of like a Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe Monday to Thursday guest. So some people might want to book it for a whole week if they only get together maybe once or twice a year. So we would, obviously be flexible with our guest schedule.
Will there be a person on site to cater to the people that are there, usually B&B operators are
Right.
either in the back or?
Yeah, no, there will not be anyone on site.
Okay.
And the way that it typically works for our business model is we have a security system and a keypad entry where they will receive a unique number to access the property. One person within the group of women would be like a hostess for the weekend, and that would be the person that we would communicate for, just whatever they might need. We would, of course, be available 24/7 in case a problem would arise or a question or if they needed something, anything like that. But the whole point is for them to just get away and just work on their craft.
So would you rent to a family? or
Well, I mean,
not
typically,
allowed?
no, I'm in the Oklahoma City Modern Quilters Guild, and we have a member, his name's Bob, and so we always say, okay, ladies, and Bob. No, I mean, Bob would be invited as well. He might, I don't think the women would want to share a room with Bob, but
You are only going to rent to quilters?
quilters,
So it's
scrapbookers,
not like, you're not gonna be on Airbnb? Or,
no,
so
no.
it's not,
Right. No, it's not going to be like a free for all. Yeah. No, I mean, the third story of the house just really lends itself to being a creative space. It's the former attic. It's been converted into like a big studio kind of space. So we would have normal living room, dining room, kitchen on the bottom floor, sleeping rooms on the second floor, and then sort of crafting on the third floor.
The third floor, is that the one noted as the den here? I believe on the plan, den?
I don't have a copy of what you're looking at.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions, commissioners? We have some folks that would like to speak out, and what I would like to do is ask you to be able to respond. So maybe I think you've laid out some pretty good information for
Okay, great.
everybody, and possibly give you a few minutes to respond on
Sure.
anything that might come up. So,
I'd be more than happy to.
Thank you,
Thank
Ms.
you for your
Everly.
time.
okay, do we have, now, we just got your letter. We just have just read your letter. And by the way, Ms. Blaine, I noticed 35 letters went out in the 300-foot radius.
Yes.
Did we receive any information back?
One came back.
Is this the one we have?
Yes.
And it's fairly lengthy and detailed. And I see we have folks on it that have signed already. Mr. and Mrs. Peak, Cushing, is it Riepe, R-I-E-P-E? Yes, sir. Beer, and it would look like a Lance Bartram. Your information is pretty well spelled out here, but if one of you would like to represent the group and recap this or whatever, or how would you like to do this? Have you signed up? You've signed up? Do we have some on the sheet there?
No. My name is James Peak.
Okay, please come up and reintroduce
I'm the
yourself.
first person on the letter.
Okay, start off with your name, please, and
My name
address.
is James Peak. I live at 714 East Warner.
is that right next door?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I feel like being next door, I'm probably going to have the most to have to deal with. I'm not
Yes.
really a public speaker, so
Go ahead, Mr. Peak. We're a nice, friendly little
I don't
group
really
here.
know how I got roped into this. I think I did it to myself.
We're all
shot
neighbors
myself
and
in
we all love Guthrie, so let's go ahead.
I think in the 5th paragraph of the letter, it talks about the distance between the houses. These are in the middle of the block, in the center of the block. Most of the houses are on 50-foot lots. They're just, I think, too close together to try and put any kind of a business in, whether it be a B&B or whatever. It just doesn't lend itself well for that. There's not enough parking. She stated that they'd have plenty of parking in the back, but the alley is gravel and it's pretty narrow, and so is the driveway going into the back of the house. And I just think the parking issue is going to be a problem, especially since there is not going to be anyone on site to monitor that. I think that's going to be a real problem. My house is roughly 13 feet from that house, and I have some photographs if y'all would like to look at them. Anybody?
Sure.
I don't know whether you saw this, but you might add that to your little, so it might be worthwhile for you to see there.
I guess the parking issue is, as it states in the letter, it's already a complicated, aggravated issue a lot of times. And
So this picture of the tin building, what is that?
I'm sorry,
It's like it's in the alleyway here?
I just got one copy of those pictures.
Oh, this one here?
Yes, that's the garage next door to me to the east.
Is that this property that we're talking about?
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's just a.
Across the alley.
I was trying to demonstrate how narrow the alley is and how little access.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Like I was saying, there's roughly 13 feet between my house and this house. It has a wood floored wraparound porch that wraps around to the east side of the house. My house is on a 50-foot lot. That house is not. 710 is definitely not. It's on a bigger lot, but it's still pushed to the east side of the lot. So we're really close together. The wood porch doesn't lend itself out to quiet. Anybody walking on that. I get up at 3:30 in the morning to go to work 12 hours a day, and I go to bed pretty early. And so even people speaking in a normal voice on that porch or walking around on that porch, all my bedrooms in my house are on the west side. So like I said, I feel like I have the most to lose of anybody, even though it's going to aggravate almost everybody in the neighborhood, I think. And almost everybody in the neighborhood has signed. All of the block on Warner has signed, and except Corbin, can't remember his last name. Crockett, I'm sorry. He's the only dissenting vote. He didn't want to sign. But he doesn't live in that block. He lives in the next block to the east, or to the west, I'm sorry. And he plans to sell that house whenever he gets it refurbished. So he's not really a permanent resident, I wouldn't think. And then all of the neighbors on the other side of the alley, which faces Mansur, they've all signed and object to it too. So
There's some here that you've got a spot for 9 of them. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are signed here.
we have missed a few signatures because of the hours that I work, and I've taken it upon myself to try and get all this done. But like I said, because I live so close to that house, and I feel like I'll be affected the most.
Commissioners, any questions of Mr. Peak?
So you're primarily concerned with the parking, is it,
That would be probably the biggest issue, but I feel like noise is going to be a big problem.
okay.
Because I feel like they're going to be there on the weekends, mostly, for the most part. I mean,
One at a time, please.
she said, that's right. Directly across from the driveway in the back where the proposed parking is, our neighbor there is handicapped, and the walkway out front is so steep and there's so many stairs, she can't go out the front. She has to go out the back. So if for any reason it blocks that alley, they can't access that to get her in or out. She can't get in or out. That's a big problem. If I can't get out for some reason, it's not a big problem. And like I said, if there's not going to be any supervision there all the time, then who's to say, well, we're not supposed to park here, but I can't find a place out front because some of our other neighbors have maybe parked in front of their house or whatever. Who's to say they won't stop and park in the alley?
Certainly, those are legitimate concerns if they happened.
Right. I'm not saying they will happen, but I think it's a distinct possibility. And the other thing is, if this permit is allowed, then the permit is good for, say, the next person that buys that house if this doesn't do well. Is that not correct?
Staff, is that the situation, or it is a permit? Does it follow the owner, or does it follow the property?
I believe it's the owner, not the property. So we would be approving this specific business idea with these business owners.
At which time, if it changed hands, it would go
require a
away.
hearing?
It would go away,
They would have to reapply.
which
Yes.
makes sense, I believe,
One more point, and then I'll shut up and
Okay.
let the rest of my neighbors talk. There's already a permitted bed and breakfast on the corner of Mansur and, is it Maple? Maple. Yeah. And then there's one directly across the street to the west, and I feel like we're just going to be enveloped by a bed and breakfast. We turned it into a business district instead of a residential area, and I bought my house because it was in a residential area. I wouldn't have bought my house next to a business. And if we go to sell, who wants to live next to a business? you know.
Well, can you speak to the problems you're seeing with the other bed and breakfasts? Are there parking
No, I
problems
can't
because of
because
that?
I don't live next door to them. so
Have you ever
I'm-
stayed in a, have you ever, Mr. Pierce, have you ever stayed in a bed and breakfast?
Absolutely not,
No.
no.
Okay, thank you. And
Thank you.
if we have anybody else would like to speak with a little different, we don't need to hear the same thing over and over. If you understand, we respectfully would ask you to that. But if you'd like to speak to something else about it, please, you may. Yes, ma'am. Introduce yourself and your name clearly and your address.
My name is Phyllis Libby, Phyllis Kimmel Libby. I live at 711 East Manser.
Your last name again, please?
Kimmel Libby,
Libby?
yes.
Yes, Miss Libby.
I live at 711 East Manser. I also have the house that was 709. I bought the house at 711 23 years ago and redid the house, and it was the eyesore on the block at the time.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Okay, I come from a historical town, Philadelphia. I respect history. I love Guthrie because of that. Shortly after I bought the house, and my husband and I did live in the house that Mr. Peak lives in for a short time because we had to gut the place and we had to live somewhere. And I can tell you, and I corroborate the fact, that all the bedrooms on the west side hear all the noise from the house next door. It's really, for some reason, it's like an amphitheater from the ancient Romans. It just comes right in the windows, okay? So he's spot on about that. But when I bought the house and I gutted the house and I worked on it and redid it, I also had a neighbor next door that was a renter, and I bought that house from Herzl because it was being trashed, and my house would have no value whatsoever. If I'm 31 inches away, because it's true 89er territory, okay, 31 inches away, okay, measured between the two houses. So I bought the second house, pulled all the electrics and the water together with all the permits from the city, okay. My husband was a professional plumber, and he knew all of the things to do. And I made a decent property out of it, really decent, okay? And I then lived 31 inches away from the bed and breakfast on the corner of Maple and Manser, all right? 31 inches. With that little house, that third 89er that nobody knew what to do with, and they didn't make it into a livable space. It doesn't have a full kitchen. It doesn't have a separate bedroom. It has a space. It has a huge tub and a bathroom for a cottage for a bed and breakfast, okay? I argued with them to make it a livable space and eventually be able to sell it independently of the house, the big two-story that they also used for the bed and breakfast. However, they lived on the premises, the people who owned it. And they did a wonderful job with what they did for that bed and breakfast. That was the first owner. So I bought in before I even knew what a bed and breakfast was in Guthrie. And I didn't have them right next door. But in the course of living there and enlarging my property, I became a neighbor to a bed and breakfast. The first owner was fabulous. They were wonderful. The second owner was responsible. They didn't do much bed and breakfast.
Miss Libby.
Wait,
may I
I've got to
interrupt?
give you this history. I understand this.
Please we've got to tell these folks, we've got to hold you to 5 minutes. We could go on
Right,
forever.
fine, I'm going
would
forward.
Would you kindly get to
I'm
what
going
you're trying to
forward,
get to, please?
right, okay?
Thank you.
When the third owner came in, they couldn't keep the bed and breakfast going, but it's a good insurance, it's a good tax write-off if it isn't working. So you know, and so I've had the noise, I've had the dirt, I've had the trash, everything over the years, all right? And then I've got one around the corner. And now you want to put it in front of me, on the back of my property, and I'm the one who's got the person in a wheelchair, who is wheelchair bound. And we have had, as recently as a month ago, emergency ambulance come in to take her to Mercy Hospital, okay? They had to carry her out. We don't have a chance to use any other entrance or exit. There is no way that the vehicle who's in the alley, the EMSIS vehicle or the ambulance can use the drive, the little bit of drive that I have, because in addition to the fact that the alley is narrow, there is a gas meter on one side of the alley and another gas meter on the other. And it's impossible to back there, okay? There is not room for 6 vehicles in the back of the house that is being proposed for a bed and breakfast, not with today's vehicles. You couldn't get SUVs in there. and have them turn
Miss Libby,
in the space.
Miss
Listen to
Libby,
me.
Miss
Turn
Libby,
in the
we've got all
space.
time on you in a moment here.
Fine.
They have given us a little diagram.
It doesn't
Which-
work. It
which
looks
you-
good on paper. In reality,
May I
it's
finish,
not going to
please?
work.
May I finish, please? Okay, they have a design here. Whether it's workable or not, that is something that we'll have to look at. But to perhaps suggest the alley may be totally blocked up because of that, all of our alleys in Guthrie they're not made for freeways. Okay, we understand that. And this
But no
alley
one's
that-
going to live in this
but-
space.
Okay, but my point of it is can you please get to the bottom line of
Yeah,
really,
the bottom
your
line
main
is I'm
objection?
totally opposed to it. My property is going to be worth garbage because I'll be surrounded by 2 businesses in a residential setting. I don't think that's fair, okay? I think
I
that's
certainly
really
appreciate-
unfair to all of the land people who have houses on this block, both mine and the other one on Warner. It's just not okay. All right? Especially when you come to a place and you labor to make it look better than when you got there. And I think that this commission needs to honor that. It's time to stop putting commercial businesses in our neighborhood.
Thank you very much. Do we have any others? Yes, ma'am.
I will only take 5 minutes, and I'll swear that I'll take more than I want.
Okay, thank you.
I live at 415 North Walnut.
415, and your name, please?
Mary Beth Craven,
Is that with a K or a C?
a C. And
J-R-A-V?
that house has been there since 1937, and I'm the third person to live there of the family. But what I'm concerned about is how many bathrooms are in this house? It's women. How many bathrooms are in the house that's the property under discussion?
Okay, we'll let her respond to that in a moment. We'll let her respond to that. Go ahead.
Okay.
Good question.
Will wine be allowed? Because I belong to a wine group, and we can be heard all over the neighborhood.
All hours of the day.
Next question. Has it been checked out by an appraiser? Because the foundation is supposedly quite weak and coming apart. Those are all questions that need to be answered. And we do have too many bed and breakfasts. Becky Luker's got one, but she's got a huge lot next to it. This one is jammed in between houses. I think you should all come sit on the porch, and we can sit next door and really experience what's happening to this particular neighborhood. I ask you to come by, to go in the house, and to drive the alley. We don't need any more. It's a beautiful house, and I'm sorry for the owners, because I know you're excited and want to sell it. But give us a family. Give us a family. Okay? And not anything else. That's all.
Thank you very much.
Very passionate.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yes, sir.
I'll just take a minute. I'm Don Reapy, and I live at 711 East Warner. And I just want to remind you guys, there is no driveways for any of these houses on this block. I'm the only house that has a driveway. And we all like to park in front of our houses. And weekends are times when we have guests that come to our place, and we want them to be close to our house, not park next block down. So I'm opposed to this because I want my neighborhood to stay the neighborhood that it is right now and not a business district. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reeby. Any others? Okay, and then we'll ask Mrs. Satterley to respond to some of this because unless we have some new items that you want to bring up. Your name, please.
My name is Eve Cushing. I live at 704 East Warner. I am on the west side of the proposed B&B at 710.
Your last name again, please.
Cushing, C-U-S-H-I-N-G.
Thank you, Ms. Cushing. Go ahead.
I've been in this house now for about 7 years. I've been in 704 about 7 years. About 5 of those years, the house has been a rental. And the problem with the rental is that people kind of think that they can, since there's not enough parking in front of that house, they end up parking in front of my house. People start using my yard as a kind of like a shortcut thoroughfare, and it's like part of my front yard is dirt. because people feel entitled to trespass over my property constantly to get to the front porch of 710. So that would be one thing. Noise for sure. And I'm very concerned because, as Phyllis was saying, the house behind me, which is next to Phyllis is on Manser, I'm on Warner. The house behind me and beside her at 705 East Manser is being painted and prepped and getting ready to be sold. And it carries a permit as a bed and breakfast. So if that house is then approved to become an active bed and breakfast again, that means a bed and breakfast behind me and beside Phyllis, a bed and breakfast beside me to the east, and a bed and breakfast behind Phyllis, and a bed and breakfast next to Jimmy Peak, who is 13 feet away from the porch.
And how have your experiences, as Mr. McBride said here, how have your experiences with bed and breakfasts that are there, what have you noticed with them?
Well, what my experience with a bed and breakfast up close and personal is the White Peacock, which is 2 lots to my west. And the nice part about that is that it's got this huge empty lot in between the two of us. So her parking can kind of, go in front of her house and come around.
But we're hearing parking and noise problems.
Parking-
Have any of you noticed that in your other bed and breakfast? I think that was a question you had, right? Have you noticed that?
Well, like I say, the only one I have had experience with up close and personal is with the Peacock, which is 2 lots over, and there's a big empty lot, and so there's a lot of frontage road for people to park on. Plus, there's some in the back.
Thank you, appreciate that.
I am concerned about the alley behind me and behind 710 and behind Jimmy Peak and behind Phyllis, because there is this wheelchair patient in Phyllis's home. And really, those EMSA vehicles are really wide. They don't look all that wide until you get up close to them.
There's no question about that.
They're really wide.
All of our
and
alleys are like that, though. I mean, that is something that
well, I'm just saying
But we
that
appreciate
that when there's an emergency to try to get her housemate out, it's going to be really touch and go trying to get her out and get her out safely.
I think most of us understand that if there's a police vehicle, law enforcement emphasis, that we all try to undertake that. So go ahead. Do you have any other items that you'd like to note?
I am concerned too. I lost my home in Edmond in a very bad divorce situation, and I wanted to come to Guthrie because I felt like it was an historic place. It was small, it was historical, it was cute, it was nice. Everybody seemed to be nice, and I like being surrounded by history. And I feel very fortunate to be in 704 East Warner. I've done a lot of work trying to restore it to its former Victorian self. And but as we say in item number 7, we purchased our homes in this area on that block, on that 700 block, precisely because for decades it's been zoned as a single-family residential neighborhood. And we were confident that it would remain so. And our investments in our homes on this block are based on this understanding.
So you're concerned about devaluation?
I am very concerned about devaluation. We all are. We are all very concerned about that. And parking is the big deal. And then if you look at item number 11, we understand that Guthrie denied a daycare on villas in a residential house because of inadequate parking.
Well, that was part of it. But,
It's a
but
very-
Parking is certainly a big problem.
The space that Ms. Satterley was talking about behind 710, it's a really tiny backyard. They would have to cement over that, cover that whole backyard.
We appreciate you bringing that up. Again, they've addressed that, and we can weigh that one out too. Unless we have something new, so we'll
Am I
thank you very much for all you, we covered pretty much everything on the items.
Need to mention anything else? Am I forgetting anything?
Do you mind if I show you a photograph that I took just a couple of days ago of the parking situation on Saturday?
I think we're all pretty aware of that, and we gave you an opportunity to speak. I should have told you, we only asked, we let you talk one time because it can go forever. But if the commissioners have any of the commissioners got any further comments about parking, that you've seen it, and we've also seen this. Now, I mean, you may or not agree with that, Mr. Peak, but that's where they're showing that they can park 3, 4, 5, 6 vehicles back there. I agree, narrow. Right. Yeah, it's showing 3. Well, at any rate, and then there, of course, there's parking in front, the 2 in front. So we most of us have observed that. Good point. Commissioners, any questions? And maybe with Ms. Satterley, would you like to come back up? You've heard some of your folks on what they have, and maybe we give you a couple of minutes for response. And I would hope the rest of you, let's be courteous and civil enough to understand their positions. Let's try to wear each other's shoes if we can here, and we're going to do that up here for you. But I'm listening to noise. I'm sure we all are. I heard Mrs. Satterley, I believe, mentioned one very good bed and breakfast experience with her. I have not personally stayed in one, and some of us have. So maybe we can listen to her response and weigh that too. Go ahead.
Thank you. I will address a couple of the recurring concerns, which is parking. First of all, like I said before, I have a bachelor's in landscape architecture. That plan is drawn to scale. There's actually Escalade, which is a large vehicle in there. So, I mean, we tried to be realistic with our plan. I don't want to make a $300,000 investment if I don't have all my ducks in the row. As far as noise,
Ms. Satterley, before we get away
Yes.
from the parking situation, you said the code requires 2 or 1 spot for every 2 people.
that's the way that we understand it.
But if you're having 12 people there, is it conceivable that they would show up with more than 6 cars?
No, because we like to carpool. We come as a group. We were in Ponca City last weekend. 3 of us drove together in 1 car. 3 of us drove together in another car. 2 people drove in 1 car. I mean, that's all part of the experience is, driving to the place and picking everybody up and getting out of town. And so I've never driven to one by myself personally. It's safer. We typically will also caravan together. We'll all leave town. For those of us that are leaving, say, Edmond at the same time, we've got a couple of girls that come down from Joplin that meet up with us. We actually have 2 that fly in from California. They get picked up at Will Rogers and they come up to Ponca City for the weekend. So
Go ahead. Would you like to further address the parking? And by the way, you're correct. There's 4 shown here. There's just a couple of 4 shown in the backyard. Go ahead.
there's 4 what shown?
They are showing them with your layout. You're showing 4 cars there actually, but I've seen and unless you're one of them, you're showing the size of the cars. Is this which architecture are you showing?
Well, I'm
You're
showing
4 or 6 back there.
6 spaces.
And again, one of the things that's been pointed out by one of your neighbors or the folks here, very small entry, little tough turn into there.
That I've actually used my own personal vehicle, which is a Honda Pilot, which is 3rd row. I've pulled in, I've turned around. I've done subdivision planning, I've done urban planning. There's adequate space for 6 cars there. I think what they're not.
Go ahead then with the rest
I
of
think
your
what they're not
response.
seeing is the carport in its current location will be moved. The parking will be moved a little bit forward on the site. It's very doable. As far as the structural issues, we have had a structural engineer inspect the property, and we do know what repairs need to be made, and that's part of our construction budget, so that will be addressed to keep the integrity of the home. We've had an appraisal. We've had heat and air inspections, plumbing inspections. All inspections have already been completed. Our construction budget is $110,000 for the property. HVAC, electrical, various repairs, all new windows in the house. That's probably why the neighbors are hearing a lot of noise. The windows, there's holes in them. You can stick your hands out the windows into the air. That could be why they're hearing a little bit of noise.
What, dual pane windows then?
Yes, dual pane windows, yep. All the windows on the second and third floor will be repaired. All of the original windows on the bottom floor will remain in the house. And all the windows to be replaced upstairs will be replaced with exact replicas. All the same muttons, the same patterns. We really want to protect the integrity of the architecture. So whatever's going to be removed, whatever their mutton configuration, that will be replaced with exactly the same thing. The National Association of Realtors says about bed and breakfasts, that bed and breakfasts actually increase property values. They're in better areas of town, they're better maintained, and they're more desirable and sought after areas of town. People who use bed and breakfast or residential renters typically spend 30% more on average and are repeat visitors, not to mention the amount of money that they're going to be spending in the community of Guthrie. One thing that I'd like to point out is that 710 East Warner is almost 3,700 square feet. It's a 4-bedroom home. I myself would consider that a family home. Young children, maybe young up-and-coming professionals. I can imagine that there would be a lot of noise coming from that family. So I don't see noise being as big of an issue. If somebody's going to live there, they're going to have noise. Our guests are more than likely going to be older, my age or older. They're there for a purpose, for a quiet purpose. So I can't see that noise is going to be a problem. And with the replacement of the windows, I think that would help with that concern. I'm trying to go through my notes here. I'm sorry? How many bathrooms? There are 2 bathrooms in the property. They're full bathrooms, shower, tub, sinks, and toilets. From my personal experience, it's not a problem. When you have a house full of women who are, working on a craft, some sleep late. Some are early risers. Some go to bed early. Some go to bed, a little bit later. You're not having a whole group of people getting up and using the facilities at the same time, where if they were, getting ready for their work day or such. So I've been to facilities that sleep 12 and have the same bathroom accommodations, and it's never been an issue. What am I forgetting? Do you have anything?
I think those were the major ones, and I think you've done a good job
Okay.
of your response there.
Okie doke.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioners.
I just want to say, as I appreciate the neighbors' concerns. And has anyone that is against this stayed in a bed and breakfast? You have? Yes. And the reason I'm bringing it up, because I pretty much stay exclusively in them, and I just stayed in one in Atlantic City, New Jersey, and I stayed in one in Tulsa, all in residential neighborhoods. And in fact, I've got 2 right behind my house, right across the creek from me. My experience has been that they're the nicest homes in the neighborhood. My other experience is I wish the people that live next door to me, and I hope they're not watching television, would take their 4 kids and 3 dogs, and they'd open up a bed and breakfast next to me, because they're not there half the time, and the yard always looks great, and there's never junk on the porch. And generally, it's lovely people that are staying there. So just as a person who has experienced it, and I know that Guthrie's known as the bed and breakfast capital of Oklahoma. No, this is a unique bed and breakfast because of the scrapbooking aspect of it. I don't know whether that makes it better or worse. I even have some friends that own Airbnb in Oklahoma City, and they put them in sort of sketchier neighborhoods, if you want to know the truth. And I've slowly over the years watched the houses around them sort of. I've seen a bed and breakfast lift a neighborhood up. I've never seen one bring it down. So I just wanted to share my experience with them. So.
Ms. Bonetto?
I have a question, and, you know, all of us choose to live in Guthrie because we like this environment. Everybody's cozy, the neighborhoods are nice and they're quiet, and everybody wants to maintain it. To that end, I would hope that all the neighbors have in some way talked to each other, that they've talked with the current owner, that they've had an opportunity to talk to the potential buyer, as Vern said, to get a feeling for what it's like in the other guy's shoes. You know, I think the passion that everybody has to make sure that the neighborhood is maintained at the high level that was intended when each of you individually brought into that area is one that you want to keep. I would also hope that if this passes, and I have no way knowing what's going to happen here, that everybody has each other's telephone number. You know, I'm sure, are they part of the neighborhood group? Neighborhood
Highland Park
Solutions?
neighborhood? I'm not for sure.
Okay. I know within Neighborhood Solutions, the neighborhood associations, everybody has everybody else's number. And that should the alley ever be blocked, whether it's, you know, with a trash can or whatever, you pick up the phone and call the owner. And, you know, you said you lived in Edmond, you know, hey, you need to come and fix this, or you need to call the cell phone of your group contact because one of them isn't parked on this new slab that's been planted back there. It's all a matter of talking to one another and getting to know. This is really difficult because I, like you, have stayed in B&Bs, and they are charming. They always have flowers out. Everything is nice and so on.
I mean,
And
I've got a family up the street from me that their teenage son plays drums 3 times a week. I wished it would become a bed and breakfast.
yeah.
Mr. McBride?
One other thing I'd like to say is that every bed and breakfast I've ever checked into before I even got there, they had a long list of rules. They told me where I could park, where I couldn't, when the trash had to go out, what would happen if we made noise after 9 o'clock, that our lease would be terminated. There's all kinds of things in the rules and regulations that if this passes, that the neighbors could work with the owners to make sure that their concerns are addressed.
Have any of you ever talked to the neighbors of those B&Bs?
Let me finish with our commissioners first. Now. Mr. McBride, anything?
No, I really don't have anything. I've been to a lot of bed and breakfast. They're always the best looking house in the neighborhood. They're always kept the best. My daughter-in-law is a scrapbooker like you all. They go as far as Las Vegas, but they'll fly. But when they're driving, there's usually 4 to 6 in a car that carpool together. So I can kind of attest for scrapbookers and stuff. But I don't really have any other comments.
Mr. Kenworthy?
Well, yeah, I've stayed in several bed and breakfasts also, and I've had the similar experience that they tend to be well kept and some of the best looking facilities in the neighborhood. So hopefully, I don't know how this is going to go, but hopefully that's what we'll find here, is that this won't be is the kind of situation that you're afraid of. I do want to commend everyone for their being prepared, and the materials that we've got on both sides is very good, and I certainly appreciate the concern of the neighbors. I mean, I think I'd be concerned as well, but hopefully, you know, if this does go through, it won't be the bad situation that you're anticipating.
Mr. Peak, you had a final.
I just wanted to ask if anyone who's ever stayed in a bed and breakfast, have you talked to the neighbors to see how they feel about it?
I have, many times.
Talked to the neighbors and
Absolutely. In fact, I will tell you that the last time I stayed in Tulsa, you won't like this, but it's true. I pulled out of the driveway and I hit a car, and so I became friends with the person across the street that I had to get his car fixed. But I found in Atlantic City, I stayed in a house, and I stayed in an 8-bedroom house with 5.5 baths, rented for $4,000 a month, and there were 7 of us staying there, and I'm 61, and I was the youngest person there. And that's another thing you'll find about in bed and breakfast. It's not a young person's game, and generally, now I rent Airbnb, and I don't know this is going to be the same thing, but you know, they write a review of the owner writes a review of them. If they've got a bad rep, they're not going to be able to stay there, and it's not it's not an inexpensive deal. So generally, the people that stay there, and I've talked to the people that there's 3 Airbnbs on Pembroke Lane, and I live right across the creek from them. The people that I've met there yeah, it is a good distance, but I will say in Atlantic City the houses were 5 or 6 feet apart.
I would just make one, Mr. Peak, I'm an old builder, so I understand your distance you're talking about. I think anything 13 feet away from you is going to be, it can conceivably be a problem with their children or anything else. So, and of course, we're insulating homes better nowadays and glass and everything else. But I think the fact that the 13 feet is, while it's certainly a problem, that's a problem that started a long time ago. Miss Libby, is it Miss Libby, right? I'm going to give you one more minute because number one, we love all of your passion, but we want you to hear. Just one moment. We want you to hear everybody's input, and then we'll try to make a decision. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead. Stand up if you will.
Yeah.
My concern is that no one's going to be on that property, except when it's being used, okay? That's a concern to me as a house owner. In case something happens with that property, the owner is in Edmond.
Good point.
In case something
Thank you.
happens to the neighborhood, the owner is in Edmond. That's a real concern to me.
Okay.
Because it's already been emptied, and this is.
Okay, we might let Miss Satterley respond to that. Any other, before Miss Satterley, we're going to give you all another 30 seconds or so. You go ahead. A brand new face, I believe, right?
Okay.
New face?
Nancy Gaylor, 624 East Washington Avenue.
How do you spell your last name, Miss Gaylor?
Gaylor.
Thank you.
And I refer back to a bed and breakfast that was here previously very successfully on the west side called the Lauren Danielle Bed and Breakfast. That was created by Debbie Judd. And I was very close with Debbie Judd. And at the time, the rules and regulations required that there be a bathroom for each bedroom in the house. She had 4 bedrooms available, and she had to make sure there were 4 bathrooms, 1 for each bedroom. Somebody in the audience brought up the fact that there were only 2 bathrooms in that facility. Is that still an issue? Is that still in the rules and regulations? I don't know.
Okay, thank you. Good question. Staff, we got any comment on that?
I think we would have to ask Mr. Henke about that one. It relates more to building code.
And again, I bring a good point up, and as an old builder, there's never enough baths. Okay, and I think we can kind of laugh about that because if you have daughters and a wife. Miss Satterley, I'm going to give you one more opportunity to respond to that one little question about that your one friend here had about who will be around and if something were to happen. You will not be on site. You said that. Now we heard Mr. Chappell say that there's always a list of things that you need to abide by and things, but of course that's only as good as the people you have there. How would you like to address that? That's right. Just go ahead and do it from right there.
Well, we, as Mr. Chappell said.
You need to come up. To
Okay, I'm overruled here. Come up. We'll give you about 30 seconds to respond to that, and then we need to move along.
We
please.
will have an agreement with the family, like Mr. Chappell said, with lots of rules and regulations. We will require a large deposit. Just so you know, the full rental on the house is $28.50 a weekend, so it's not just going to be some schmo that kind of, like it's going to be quality people that want a quiet getaway for $2,850 a weekend. As far as availability, I live at Danforth and I-35, right on the highway. I can be here in 20, 25 minutes, depending on traffic. they'll have 24-hour, 7 days a week access to us. I mean, we don't live exciting lives. I'm a mother of 2 girls and own a business. I hang around home most weekends. Every time someone checks out, we'll have it professionally cleaned. We already have contracts go with our cleaning crews. I will also be on site after every checkout, and my sister will be on site prior to every check-in to just make sure that nothing's damaged, so nothing needs to be repaired, deposits are returned, et cetera, et cetera.
Thank you. Appreciate that response.
Yep.
We got to bring this to an end. 30 seconds, ma'am.
30 seconds.
No, this one right in front here. Go ahead. We'll get to you in a moment. Go ahead. Going by these, that's Miss Cushing, right?
Yeah, yes, Eve Cushing, 704 East Warner. I just wanted to comment to a couple things. With all due respect, Mr. Chappell, you're attesting for B&Bs all over the country. I'm here to attest for the neighbors on the 700 block of Warner and Manser. As for the noise and possibly the new windows in 710, that will do nothing for people gathering on the big wraparound front porch at 710, which is 13 feet away from the west side of Mr. Peak's house that has all of his bedrooms. And so you get a bunch of people on that porch, and it is like an echo chamber, as Phyllis said. So the new windows will mean nothing for people who are gathering on that front porch. I'm very concerned about no supervisor being on site.
Okay, you just heard a response to that.
That's a real big concern. And then carpooling. I mean, what if somebody shows up with an extra car? Are they not allowed in?
I mean, those are legitimate things, but I think we've tried to address most of those.
And I just have one question too. How do you advertise a bed and breakfast that is only for knitters and quilters? I mean, what if somebody wants to use it as a bed and breakfast because they're in town and they're not a knitter or quilter? I mean, are they not allowed to stay? Or
that might be a legitimate question. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And by the way, you know, isn't part of living in the neighborhood having a little bit of fun out in the front porch, folks? I mean, you know, we can't limit everything. We have to be a little bit understanding and appreciative. In the back, go ahead, real fast, right back here. Go ahead.
All I want to say is, why in the heck didn't we all get together and talk about this before we got to this point? Yes,
exactly.
Good point.
Communication. I'll be glad to serve as a liaison and answer questions back and forth. 2 of the people on the board know me, but it's too bad.
Yes, communication, and thank you for that, pointing that out. Thank you. Ms. Satterley, I'm going to give you 30 seconds more to answer that one question that a lady brought up. And you just do it from there quickly. We move this along. Her concern was, are you not allowing others other than your quilters and your things? What if somebody else?
I think if someone, wanted to have a quiet weekend and they made their case to us, of course we'd rent to them. I mean, we're business people. I mean, I'm not going to lie.
Sure.
I'm going to tell the truth.
And I think
But I will answer your other point of being on the porch. If you're going to spend almost $3,000, you're going to spend it on the 3rd floor doing what you're there to do.
$2,850 a week is substantial.
On a nice evening, people are going to want to sit on that beautiful front porch. They really are.
Good point. Commissioners, any final comments before I entertain a motion?
I'm good.
I'll entertain a motion.
Wait a minute, I have one question. In a bed and breakfast, you give breakfast. Someone needs to be there. When these people are there, there has to be someone from the business on the premises, and they have to supply the breakfast. I mean, we're just a commodity, is that it? I think there has to be something much clearer in what is being promoted here, because all we're getting is knitters and quilters, but the truth is, you're applying for bed and breakfast. Unless you, on the commission, limit this in some way, we, as the neighbors, could be liable to all kinds of noise and stink from
Thank you,
engines
Mrs.
and
Libby.
cars and everything.
Okay, I think we've covered it all pretty good. I'm sorry, we need to cut it off and we need to make a decision.
She said if people are not quilters, they can still stay there. So already exceptions are being made.
Good point. Commissioners, I will entertain a motion. And thank you all for your input, and we appreciate this very much, and we all love Guthrie, and we'll hope this works out for the best. Entertain a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve. Discussion? I would like to say on one thing on discussion, Ms. Blaine, we need to verify, and I would like to make an addition to this, that this special use permit would stay only with the owner, not travel with the property. And I think we need, one of the questions that came up as to whether that is true of the one on Mansur. I think we need to look into that also for enforcement. If Mr. Chappell has no problem with that, I'd like to make sure that that is part of the motion, that we are approving this for the owner only and not to follow the property. Do we have is that acceptable?
We may need to verify with the city attorney that
That is
it's a legal
possible?
thing to do.
Okay, but
I don't.
can we put that in there at this time, and then we can check with the attorney? So that goes, so somebody's concerned there, and hopefully we've helped you out on that. Any further discussion, commissioners? Can we have the vote, Ms. Blaine?
Yes. Commissioner Chappell,
Yes.
Commissioner Spinato,
Yes.
Commissioner McBride,
Yes.
Commissioner Kenworthy,
Yes.
Commissioner Ogden.
Yes. Thank you all again. Moving on to item, and by the way, could you let them know where this will go from there so that that it goes to city council?
Yes, this will be heard at our next city council meeting, which will be next Tuesday night.
At what time?
It's at 7 o'clock here in the same room.
I thought you were supposed to represent the resident. These people are not residents. She lives in Edmond, for crying out loud.
Would she want a business opening up next to her home in Edmond?
Thank you all, okay. Moving on, our next item on the agenda is request for future items of discussion. Commissioners?
I have a request that perhaps we get a workshop scheduled on some of the concerns that we've been talking about for the last year or so.
Ms. Blaine, welcome aboard, as we've said
Welcome
before.
aboard, yeah.
And one of the things I think you can probably check with our good city manager, we came up with one workshop and a list of, half a dozen things that we would like to discuss. Could we kindly ask you to look into that? And I know you're getting your feet on the ground, and it's so great to have you here. When it might fit your schedule, and hopefully 5 of us, we'll certainly endeavor to meet you. We would like to have that workshop and discuss these things that have continued to be a little meddlesome and challenging for us over the past years or so. Could we ask you to do that, please?
Yeah, that would be fine.
Okay. Any other requests on the your future items, folks, down the line?
No.
Okay, maybe come with some ideas that we would have for our new planning commissioner that we would like to request.
Okay.
Staff comments?
I have no comments at this time.
How about that staff member down there? Any comments from him? No, sir. Commissioner comments? Ms. Spinato?
I'm fine, have no comments.
Mr. Chappell?
None.
Mr. McBride?
None.
Mr. Kenworthy?
None.
Again, then I would just say welcome aboard. It's good to have you. We've been looking forward to having somebody to help us out, and we will endeavor to be here in every way we can, and hope we can get some progress made on a few of these things.
And we have a new
Thank you.
commissioner as well, do we know that?
And we have a new, by all means, my apologies. Also, thank you very much, Mr. Commissioner. We have Mr. Bob Kenworthy, and it's good to have you on board.
Well, thank you.
Appreciate having you. Look forward to seeing you more of you. I'll make a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
So moved. Motion made. Thank you.